Hey there funnel builders, Mike here from Sell Your Service. I wanted to do a bit of a, I guess, behind the scenes, cutting through the bullshit type video. I get a lot of messages about my lifestyle and the habits that I have and the stuff that I'm able to do, and I kind of wanted to expose a lot of the misconceptions and myths behind what it is that I do every single day, and also explain a little bit about how it's easy to look at someone and think, well fuck, they've got it figured out, when deep down or behind the scenes it's perhaps a bit more chaotic than you might imagine. So the kind of the 5 areas that I wanted to work on, I've got them written down here. This is completely off the cuff. This is not in our content plan or anything. I get to work out a lot, or I do work out a lot. I get up early, I read a lot, I create a lot of content like YouTube videos, and I'm very confident. And first of all, I would hate for anyone to ever watch any of my stuff or read any of my stuff and think, yeah, well that's Mike, I couldn't do what he does, because one of those 5 reasons. The working out one comes up a lot, which is interesting to me. I feel I have to do something in the morning, otherwise my brain just doesn't switch on. I have to get that blood pumping, and then the next 2 to 3 hours are like hyper productive. I can always tell the difference, and some people say, you know, I can't exercise, or I'm not in the right shape to exercise, this kind of stuff. So that, you know, we'll talk about that. There's also other habits which other people see as very bordering on holy. You know, getting up early, reading a lot. It's that typical thing of, I always imagine it as like a parent dropping their kids off, or 2 parents dropping each individual kid off. One parent is like just about managing to get their kid into school on time, drives in and is like, fucking hell, I must look like an absolute mess. And one parent manages to drop their kids off and everything's great. They go, oh, thank you so much, I love you, mummy. Drop the kids off and drive off in their fucking white Porsche or whatever. And it's really easy to take a snapshot of someone's life or what they put out into the world and think, yeah, all right, well that's how they do it. I could never do that. I don't have the time, I don't have the patience, I don't have whatever it is, and I could never get to that level. And you kind of deep down think, what a dickhead, you know, what a smug fuck for being able to do all that stuff. So I wanted to cover off these kind of 5 areas and really expose some of the bullshit behind it, and hopefully show you that it's not all rainbows and butterflies at all, by a long stretch of the imagination. Anything you see is always a very polished and edited version of what comes out. So point number 1 is that I work out once a day, which to me is pretty average. I don't think I work out a huge amount. In fact, I know I don't, because a lot of my mates will do it like 2 times a day comfortably. And it's always a bit of a thing like, oh, fucking hell, gym, like I'm some sort of gym buff. And I'm not at all. At all. It's funny because the brand that I kind of used to work out with at our gym is kind of known for being a bit dickheadish. But yeah, it's pretty much the first thing I do. In fact, I've noticed now that I actually miss it when I wake up. It's worth noting, I used to hate going to the gym. I don't particularly like working out in general. I certainly never used to like exercise. When I first met Liv, I was overweight, frankly. I used to drink a lot, did a lot of questionable substances at the previous job that I had, and I was out of shape. I was in quite good shape when I was in like kind of beginning of college, you know, like 6th form, 16, 17. But then at that age, you can pretty much eat whatever the fuck you want. It was only for doing it every single day for 3-4 years, you know, longer. How long have I been with Liv? Coming on 8 years this year. So yeah, 4 or 5 years every single day, that eventually I began to see benefits. And now it's the first thing that I do. Do I wake up every day thinking, oh yeah, time to work out? No, definitely not. Some days I'm like, oh, I really want to stay in bed. And some days I do. Some days I think, ah, fuck it. And I hit the alarm and I will absolutely sleep in. And I feel pretty crappy at the end of it, but occasionally I do need that. If you look at someone and think, oh my God, how do they work out every single day? I didn't, first of all, start out, I wasn't doing the same routines and the same stuff when I started, I was just like, well, let's just see if we can do a bunch of push-ups today. And I slowly worked up to it. I started hanging out in a lot more forums and stuff to do with, it sounds fucking stupid, things like weightlifting, and, you know, for all of its devilry, you know, CrossFit's got a lot of good exercises and stuff, and typically their gyms are very inclusive. And I just started hanging out more with those types of people, and yeah, I actually ended up really enjoying it. And whenever I've done it, I'm really glad that I've done it. I would also say that looking after your body and your health is probably the biggest impact that you can have, no matter what it is. If you've got a body, you're an athlete. But it's not like it's something that I think, well, I'll do this every single day and then I'll get ripped and then everyone will love me. I had to get into it. I had to learn to get into it. I had to really force myself to get into it, and even now I still struggle with it. Number 2, getting up early. The biggest bone of contention, because for a long time there was that 5 a.m. club shit, and there was like, yeah, you should get up because it's the most productive time. What I have found is that, and I think there's probably a lot of science and data to back this up, consistently getting up at the same time every single day is more important than how early you get up or when you go to sleep. I found that as soon as I started saying, no, 6 o'clock is when I get up, I couldn't do 5 o'clock. You know, just physically couldn't do it. And someone will say, well, of course you can. The reality is, again, it's more about the time that you make use of when you get up, as opposed to when you get up. So 6 o'clock every single day, that was the time that worked for me. And I started thinking, well, fuck you if you think 5 o'clock is the only time. Great, knock yourself out. If that's the best time in the world for you to get up, awesome, keep going for it. If you think the best time to get up is 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, it actually doesn't matter. It's to do with the time that you make, or the time that you have during that morning period. I think the rule of thumb is that the first 2 or 3 hours of the day are the most productive, and I would agree. You know, that's when I get all my writing done, that's when I get my content done, that's when I get critical thinking done and big strategic plans and stuff. And I'd hate to have that taken away from me. But it's more about consistently getting up at a time rather than getting up at the earliest time possible. So yeah, don't fucking worry about what time people say you should get up. I also sleep quite a lot. I also go to bed really early. I'm in bed by about 9:30, which again, people are like, well, there's no way I could do that. I've got kids, whatever. Fine, you know, there's nothing for me to be able to, that I could do about that. But for whatever reason, I've just found I'm way better. I can wake up at 6 if I go to bed at 9:30, 10, which kind of leads me on to my third point. Point number 3 is that I read a lot, and I attribute my ability to create this much content down to my ability to read as much. First point, I have an Audible subscription, and I consider that part of reading, and I will listen to my Audible. I will listen to a lot of non-fiction as well as fiction when I go for a run. That's usually what I'll listen to if I'm working out by myself or in the gym, is audiobooks. I listen to them in the car. If I'm driving anywhere, I don't listen to a huge amount of music when I'm working or during the day. If I am working, I'll do Brain FM, brain.fm. I'll put an affiliate link down in the description below if you want to if you want to sign up to that and get a free month. But that's the first thing. But secondly, you'd be staggered at how much you can read if you just set aside the time. People are like, oh, I don't have the time. Half an hour you can read a huge amount, and that's what I do at night. Is I read fiction typically at night, and non-fiction in the morning. The first thing I do kind of when I wake up is, because my head, you know, it's a bit slow and sluggish. That's how I'm able to read a lot, is I have Audible and I have to force myself. And yeah, there are days again when I put in my headphones, I'm like, I really fucking cannot be bothered to hear more about Stoic philosophy from the greats and from the masters and from 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 year old people and their meditation books. But I do understand its importance, and as soon as I start listening to it, I'm like, well, fuck it, it's playing now, there's nothing I can do about it. So I attribute my ability to do more because of my ability to read more. And we live in this age where you can pretty much read 24 hours a day. You've got a Kindle, some dirt cheap books on Kindle. I like reading paperbacks a lot. If we go anywhere, I'll always be reading. And that's just a force of habit to say, okay, you don't need to see another Instagram video. Instead, why don't you pick up a book? And that's just a habit I force myself into. Again, not natural, not something I find easy to do, but I force myself to do it. Which leads me on to my fourth point on creating content. We've got the third book coming out soon, 5-Figure Funnels. We're already working through the fourth book. First of all, I don't type everything. I've got dictation software. I use Dragon Dictate. I also use Otter.ai, so I'll talk to my phone. Literally, I've got my headphones plugged in and I'll have a conversation with my phone, and then that will get transcribed and turned into content. I now see the benefit of creating content, and I think most people see the time it takes and the energy, and they use that as an excuse, because what they're really doing is saying, I don't want to put myself out there. If you go back to the earliest posts, you go back to the earliest videos on this channel, if you go back to my earliest blog posts, you'll see just how bad they are. They're low quality. You will inherently and instantly make something way better than my first video. So first of all, know that any first content you create will be way better than anything I create. I'm not a natural writer. I'm definitely not natural on camera. When it comes to video content, you might not be able to notice, but I do this thing called a jump cut, and that's when I'll stop a sentence and I'll pick it back up over here. My YouTube videos, even if I do them in one long recording session, I'll cut the blanks out. So if I take a long time to think about something, it looks like the blink of an eye to you guys or anyone watching, because I cut out that middle bit, right? That means I have time to process my thoughts, let my kind of thinking catch up with me, and it's the same with blog content. That's why I actually prefer writing, because your brain has time to catch up with your typing, and when you're talking, it can be very off-putting. My videos are not done in one perfect take. I know some people do, like full credit to them, knock yourselves out. I can't do that. There is an enormous amount of editing. So that first point that I mentioned at the top, like this perfect thing that you can see in front of you, that comes out is heavily edited. It's, you know, sanitized, it's cleaned up, it's tightened up, it's fucking sterilized, and I think, well, that's the best projection of myself that I want to put out there. For this video, it'll probably run 12 to 15 minutes maybe. It'll probably be about 20 to 25 minutes worth of recording, because I'll just be talking and then I'll go over sentences. If I create a script, even if I create a script, I won't learn it word for word, but I'll do a couple of sentences or a paragraph at a time, or I'll see a bullet point like 15 methods to drive more traffic. I'll talk and then I'll pause it, I'll stop it, or I'll just keep talking, or I'll keep it paused, and I'll edit out the stuff that I don't want. You're never going to create perfect content, ever. Even people have been doing it their entire lives. You know, you have massive editing processes, especially with podcasts and videos and stuff like that. So don't think that anything you produce doesn't look good unedited, because yeah, it probably doesn't, but no one's does. The best in the world have to have huge editing teams to make it look any good. Marlon Brando, one of the best actors of all time, had a fucking huge editing team behind any of the productions that he was in, because he just fucked it up so much on stuff like Apocalypse Now and Superman and stuff, you know. So it's actually got nothing to do with who is behind who's on the camera and the content and stuff. A lot of the time it's to do with the editing behind it. So yeah, and that kind of leads me on to point number 5. Funny how these actually led into each other. Mike's very confident, right? I teach confidence. I would argue that that's the core goal of Sell Your Service. I also think that confidence is different to trust. In my opinion, trust implies some kind of quid pro quo. Like, if I do that, I'll trust that you'll do this. But I believe that confidence is like, nope, you don't have to give me anything. I have confidence that you'll do it. That's a whole other conversation. And I believe that people, the majority of their problems stem from the fact that they don't have enough confidence. And people will look at the content that I create and the fact that I'm happy to just jump on a Facebook Live, have a conversation, stand up in front of a group of people and talk. I've been told that confidence is the food of the wise man and the liquor of the fool. So I guess I'm hoping that I'm the wise man with confidence, but there's definitely been times where I've been overconfident and I fucked it up. There was a period actually when I was super shy. There was actually a period when I was a kid when I was more confident and I was kind of outgoing, and then, you know, you go through your teenage years and you have a couple of people who say like, look, wind your neck in. And for a long time I kind of slunk down and thought, I just need to keep my head down, keep focused, and not rock the boat. And I think that that's what confidence is perceived as someone who's willing to stand up, rock the boat, say, no, fuck this, I'm off. And it's not at all. Confidence is your ability in being sure of the outcome, no matter what the rest of the world is telling you. And it was only through accepting that I can't control what other people think about me or what other people feel about me. It's also not up to them what I consider to be a good job and a good work. So I was like, actually, if I do want to start talking about this stuff on camera, if I want to start filming myself, it's got nothing to do with them. If they still insist that, you know, that makes me out to be, I think in school I was probably known as a bit of a drama queen, a little bit. I certainly like to be the center of attention. Now that probably stems back to wanting to be a class clown, because it was like a way for me to define a role within that group of people. And a lot of people go through that, you know, a lot of people do that. I didn't take myself too seriously, but that was because I was afraid of taking myself seriously. But that's not confidence at all. So since then, you know, it's interesting, I still get people kind of messaging from me from school and from a previous life, kind of picking me up a little bit on some of the stuff that I'm creating. And you have to swallow that and kind of think, well, actually, like I've evolved and adapted and changed so much over 5 years, over 10 years, over 20 years. I'm not the same person. So I'm sorry if you are the same person and you haven't grown since the age of 15, 20, 25. You know, I'm really sorry if you haven't grown. I have. And so you kind of have to ignore the feedback that you're getting a little bit. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, this is a complete off-the-cuff random video. I probably won't even publish it at the regular time. In the meantime, guys, if this was useful, if there's anything that resonated with you, let me know in the comments down below. I will see you on another video. Head to sellyourservice.co.uk/blog if you want to check out the blog. And remember, we've got our Funnel Builders Focus Assessment Report. If you head to sellyourservice.co.uk/focus to get a customized report. If you want to hit the subscribe button or the like button if you're a funnel builder, go ahead and do that. In the meantime, I'll see you on the next video. Have courage, commit, and take action.